here with Laura Watkinson. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Laura Watkinson. I'm a Dutch-English translator. I focus on children's books.
There's two books specifically that Laura's here for. The Letter for the King by Tonke, Dragt, and there's a second one now, which is The Secrets of the Wildwood. We've got the matching copies. Yeah. And so Laura is the translator for both of these books. I asked you guys on Twitter if you had some questions, and you did. So I'm gonna ask you some of these questions, and I have some of my own questions as well. Great. As people may or may not know, I studied translation at university at Leiden, did my master's in translation. I wrote my dissertation on the Dutch translation of The Fault in Our Stars, which is really, really fun. So first of all, a question for me, and that is, how did the translation of The Letter for the King come about?
The translation of The Letter for the King came about because I met Adam from Pushkin Press, and he was just setting up Pushkin children's books in print. And he said, I'm looking for classics. I'm looking for books that really, really deserve to have been translated and they've missed out. Are there any examples that you can possibly think of in Dutch children's literature? This is the obvious title.
This is the one.
Oh my goodness, finally I have a chance to persuade somebody how great this book is. Because the long story is, I'd already translated a couple of excerpts of the book, I'd already talked to a couple of publishers about it, but everybody was a little bit wary of publishing a book that's that size.
Right, and also written in the 60s.
And written in the 60s. It should have been translated when it came out in 1962.
There's a great list on Goodreads where people say, here are some, I think it's specifically Dutch books that should have a translation but don't have one yet. And that one was at the top of it, which totally makes sense.
Yes. Well, every year there's an award for Best Book of the Year, and then they did a winner of the Winners' Award, and Tonke Letter for the King.
Won everything, basically.
Won everything, yeah.
Why do you think it hadn't been translated yet?
It's a really good question. It's one that I struggle with quite often. There are so many great children's books in different languages that just never have made it into English.
Let's take some questions that people sent in. The first one is from Marion, and she said, did you take a master's in translation or literary translation, and if so, what was your experience of it, and sort of what did you study to become a translator?
I am fairly atypical, I would say, in that I actually did study languages as an undergraduate. Many translators don't. They come from all sorts of different backgrounds. Perhaps music, they've been studying that, and then they learn a foreign language and they gradually move into translating as well. It's something that people often pick up on slowly, and then the work takes off and they move into it. And I certainly wouldn't say that you have to have a background in languages. Practical experience is more important. But saying that, I did do a postgraduate certificate in Dutch-English literary translation at UCL here in London, and that was fantastic. It was just one evening a week over the course of a year, and we did lots and lots of practical translation, talking to translators who were already working in Dutch-English literary translation. We did poetry, we did plays, we did novels. A Dutch novelist came over and we worked with him for a while, and these practicing translators would tell us what translation was about and why they enjoyed it, and how you can practically get in touch with publishers and develop your career in that way. And that practical stuff was invaluable for me.
Any advice to someone who's almost done studying translation and doesn't know what's going to happen next?
Read, 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 translate, translate, translate. Network, network, network. Hang out in the places where the publishers hang out. Go to things like International Translation Day, talk to people. Because that's how you get the work, because people know that you're there. Translators are a friendly bunch.
This is Athlin, and she asked, how do you deal with word games? Like when a word may mean two things and the author plays with that.
Every time it's something different, there are different challenges in the book. At the moment, I'm actually translating another book by Tonke Dragt, De Zevenprong. And I found that The Letter for the King and the sequel, The Secrets of the Wildwood, they were, I'm not going to say straightforward to translate, but there weren't so many of those tricky little issues between Dutch culture and British culture to deal with, because it's got a medieval setting.
So that's pretty universal.
Whereas with The Zevenprong, she's a lot more creative with the language, and there's an awful lot of punning going on in it.
They're a challenge, but when you do get them right, it's fantastic.
Sometimes you find a solution that works even better. You know, it's not quite literally a translation of the thing that the author put in the text, but you've come up with your own version somewhere else.
And it works really well.
You know, I'll translate the book in quite a quick pass the first time, and then I know what the issues are and where those little puns are, and
then you can,
you work on it in the back of your head.
Oh, this is one of my my favorite questions probably. And it is from Vita. And she asks, what is your opinion on changing names, like with the name changes in the Dutch Harry Potter? And obviously there's some quite complicated names in the Letter for the King.
Letter for the King wasn't so bad because again it's a medieval setting and the names are made up. Some of them are sort of real world names, but some of them, like the main character Turi, that is just it's a made up name. It's a name that came to the author and it wouldn't let her go, and she needed to use that name for that character. She didn't even really like it very much to start with. She thinks it's a bit of a silly name, but no, it stayed. So obviously, you know, I'm going to use that made up name for him. And the name has actually become very popular in the Netherlands. So
really? I had no idea.
Yeah. If I were translating a book for adults, I usually would keep the names exactly the same in the English, because adults can deal with that sort of thing. I think it can throw children off a little bit.
I can imagine.
There are names in there like Avan with an I and a J, and I think a lot of children go Iwigen. So I changed that to Evan, for example, and I thought, okay, that's a real world name, but we have real world names in the book, so that's all right. And then there was one unfortunate knight in the book called, in the Dutch version, he's called Sir Fatuma. I thought, okay, I can't really allow that one to stand, so I changed that one to Fantuma, changing R to an N.
Gail asked, how much communication is there with the original author, if any? And specifically for this book or for any other books that you've worked on?
It depends very much on the project. I mean, I really would like to meet Tonke Dragt just to say thank you for writing all these great books. But it wasn't the case that I actually needed to talk to her about anything in the book. It's very clear.
It is, yeah, it is really clear.
There weren't any sort of, what does she mean here? I need to discuss that. But I would contact authors if that happened. And some authors like to be involved. Some authors like to read the translation and come up with their own suggestions. And
do you ever find that you have a very sort of specific question about something where you think, oh, there might be something really deep behind this? Then you ask the author and they go, oh no, that was just completely random.
Or they'll go, I wrote that? What did I mean there? I don't remember now. Just translate what it says. Yeah, there were some really nice questions came in.
I also think it's one of those really mysterious things that people just feel like they never really hear about the translators a lot, and people talk to authors a lot and there's lots of author interviews, and I wish there were more bios for translators in the back of books, because that's important, where the translator's from, what their background is. It can have a huge influence on a book.
There's a campaign actually, you might have come across it on Twitter, Name the Translator, to sort of focus on getting reviewers to remember this is a translated book and the words that you're reading were actually written by the translator. Right. It's the author who came up with the story, but every single word in that book was written by the translator, and the translator is an essential part of the process.
Definitely, because you would totally be able to notice if, you know, if someone else had translated it. It's so obvious. Yeah. Letter for the King came out last year. We have so many different editions here. This is the new edition by Pushkin, but I have the special limited edition, which I'm quite fond of. It's really nice. And then I have the proof copy here for The Secrets of the Wildwood, which is out on September 3rd.
In hardback.
Which is the sequel. Yeah, it'll be out in hardback. And it's really nice.
One of my favourite things.
Oh, it's got a coloured map.
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful.
Really nice. Thank you very much for being on my channel. I hope you enjoyed filming this video. If you have any links to Twitter, etc., I'll put that in the description as well. And in the comments, if you speak any other languages than English, let me know what book from your native language you would like to see translated into English. Doei!